This episode of the charity show Bites is brought to you by The Good Studio, creating great content for good causes.
Hello and welcome to the Charity Show Bites, your fast-paced spotlight on the most heartwarming corners of the charity world. I'm Piers Townley.
And I'm Tim Bainan, and as the weather cools and the dark nights lengthen a bit, Piers, we're looking this week at some really generous community-led initiatives across the UK, ones that are quite literally about keeping people warm.
Spot on, that's right. This episode is all about unexpected winter warmers, charities and campaigns that are focused on helping people through the cold months ahead. So let's find out more.
Yeah, we're talking about cold, dark winter days and nights now, Piers. And as we're recording this, we're being battered by Storm. I can't remember what it was called. Storm Claudia or something, I think.
Claudia?
Claudia?
Yeah.
No, it's pretty miserable out there. It's got back from a pretty soggy dog walk. So quite timely, this episode, I think. And to kick us off, I want to talk about Age UK London. And Age UK, obviously, there's lots of local branches of Age UK around. And I'm just looking into sort of their support, actually, for my dad at the moment. So it's quite interesting and quite timely that this popped up as well. Age UK London is running, as it usually does, winter check-ins across the city. And I'm sure it's probably other Age UK branches across the country doing the same. Now, they include a mix of phone calls, home visits and group sessions aiming to reduce loneliness and help older Londoners to stay safe during the colder months. This year's campaign, which, as I said, is running now, focuses especially on helping people navigate rising energy costs, avoid unsafe heating alternatives, and access small emergency grants where needed. They've also partnered with local cafes and libraries to signpost warm, friendly places for people to spend time during the day. So some really important and interesting work there. And I don't know about you, but something that struck me just reading that sentence there was unsafe heating alternatives. I don't know about you, but I remember my grandparents back in the day loved a bar fire and then also sort of piles of newspapers right next to them and stuff like that. I think...
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
And some proper big shag pile carpets or some dodgy crinkly curtains nearby. Yeah, I remember the 3-bar.
Yeah.
It was kind of like a weird electrical hum to it as well in my grand's house. Terrifying thing, really.
Yeah, and you wonder whether or not, older people still use that kind of stuff to save putting the heating on. Do they still use that kind of stuff, and are they doing it safely? So some really important work there, I think. And
another nationwide initiative as well is the National Grid Community Matters Fund, which is the winter grants for this year, 2025. And National Grid's annual Community Matters Fund is back. And applications closed just a couple of weeks ago. Various applications there to offer grants to charities that run warm hubs and winter food provision and emergency heating support with some energy efficiency workshops. Lots of initiatives all over the country that are funded by this Community Matters Fund. Lots of other forms of cold weather help. You kind of think it's unfortunate that it has to exist, but it does exist, and it does a huge amount of good as well, supporting a lot of grassroots organisations since 2021. And hyper-local charities are also applying to some village halls and community pubs and faith groups and grassroots community kitchens. So all aspects of local, hyper-local community help applying for these funds to help their communities. So a fantastic and much needed lifeline there.
Yeah, definitely. Really interesting. I think maybe something we should look at on the main show, perhaps, Piers, is that hyper-local charity stuff, really small stuff that takes places in little villages and village halls and things they put on for their local residents and just a very small number of people, but they're doing really important stuff. So perhaps we should take focus on hyper small charities at some point, one for the future. But this is at the opposite end of the scale, from hyper small to really quite big. The Salvation Army, obviously quite relevant at this time of year, because we're all used to seeing the Salvation Army on our high streets during the Christmas period. The Salvation Army's big collection basically wrapped up just before we recorded this, and it's their annual appeal to fund homelessness support, addiction services and emergency shelters across the UK. The 2025 campaign highlighted their increasing use of mobile winter support, things like roving soup vans, pop-up warm spaces and outreach teams giving out thermal socks, gloves and hot meals. They haven't published their totals yet because it's too early doors, but they reported strong community fundraising this year, particularly from schools and faith groups. So some important work from the Salvation Army. I love the idea of roving soup vans. Sounds great.
Yeah, it does. Sounds fantastic. And we're back with Age UK again for Nottingham and Nottinghamshire. So Age UK Knots, their winter campaign is running right now, and it's called No One Should Have No One. And it's focusing on ensuring that older people don't face Christmas alone, a common theme that we've seen for the last few years, ramping up in the last few years with so many charities and so many organisations. They're coordinating hundreds of befriending visits, festive lunches, warm-spaced meetups and doorstep check-ins across the county. They've also been recruiting a whole raft of extra volunteers specifically for December because demand for the service has risen year on year.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think it's important that they do so over Christmas, but there's also, we talked about it I think in the last show, how it's a little bit dangerous to think about focusing specifically on Christmas for charities, because obviously this work goes on throughout the winter. So I think sometimes it's wrong perhaps the idea is to use Christmas as the catalyst to raise awareness, but not to focus people's attention on Christmas so much, because obviously these things are necessary throughout the whole winter period, which can stretch for 4 or 5 months really. So yeah, good stuff. And I'm going to talk next about Health, Heart, Hope charity and their winter kits appeal, which launched just earlier this month. The Health, Heart, Hope charity, which supports the Kent and Medway Mental Health NHS Trust, launched its winter appeal 2025, as I said, just earlier in November. They're asking the public to sponsor or donate winter kits for people sleeping rough across Kent and Medway. Each kit costs £70 and includes essentials like a dry bag, cold weather clothing, emergency food vouchers and a sleeping bag. They're also collecting coats, gloves and scarves and relaunching their hot water bottle scheme through cafes and community centres during November to March. It's a simple idea, but the scale of demand always makes it one of their biggest winter appeals. An important one there. Also, I think that whole, you see that quite a lot. A lot of charities do that whole sort of donate a coat thing. I've seen that quite often for a lot of things, whether it's for homelessness or for people who can't afford to buy coats and warm winter clothing. But that's those kind of schemes are great, and we see some of our local businesses local to where we are doing that kind of thing as well. Again, small charities at a community level, but really, really important work.
It's quite a powerful ask, isn't it, really, Tim? When you see like a specific amount of money for a specific, say, Christmas lunch or a specific item to tackle the winter on the streets, that's, I think, where the message becomes very, very poignant and also hits home, rather than say, just donate 50 quid or an arbitrary 50 quid, when it's actually like, we specifically want X, Y or Z, or we want that amount of money because that's exactly where that cash will go. I think that subtle change and that subtle emphasis is really important.
Yeah, with my marketing hat on, that's charity marketing gold. That is, when you've got X amount of money buys ABC. Really important, and it works because the statistics and the data behind those kind of campaigns prove that if you can demonstrate how the money is being spent, you're much more likely to convert in terms of donors and donations. So you're absolutely right. Being able to picture that £70 winter kit and what it includes really helps to sort of fire people's willingness to donate, I think.
Yeah, I think it might be Shelter. I might have got that wrong, but I think Shelter's have done this in the last couple of years very well as well. It's like, for example, £26.11, a really specific amount, which actually makes you stop and think, okay, what exactly is it? And why is that exactly down to the pennies that have been part of that ask? But as you say, marketing, very, very clever way of addressing or doing that ask during this time of year. And over now to Places for People, which is a UK social enterprise organisation. It announced this month that they're supporting 49 warm hubs and food banks across the UK through their 2025 Winter Ready programme. They're helping community buildings stay open through colder months by funding energy efficiency improvements, things like insulation fixes and draft protections and heating upgrades. They've also been channeling grants into Stay Open funds for small non-profits running local warm spaces, especially in hard-to-reach, more rural areas. So fantastic initiative there for Places for People.
Yeah. Again, come back to that local stuff, don't we, in terms of things like village halls and all those kind of things that are doing so much good and run on that micro level. Now to the Royal Voluntary Service, which continues to run its network of warm welcome sessions, social groups combined with warm spaces right across the country. For this winter, they've highlighted new sessions in the North East and South Wales, offering warm drinks, free activities, seated exercise classes, and socialising for older people who might otherwise be isolated. It's one of those examples where a warm space becomes much more than warmth. It becomes connection. And important stuff there in terms of giving people, not just bringing them together, but giving them a whole host of things to do. Seated exercise classes, a bit of yoga, a bit of that kind of stuff. I love that. Brilliant idea.
Really interesting, isn't it? Tackling the isolation and that connection, the connection theme that we're touching on in this episode, I think is really important. And this leads on to our last story, which really resonates with me, because I think quite often you don't realise that actually you may have all these fantastic small hyper-local charities and organisations out there, but if they're in the middle of nowhere and no one can get to them, then that's the real challenge of a lot of these. And this is something that community transport providers are trying to address. They've got their Warm Wheels, which is a 2025 pilot programme. It's to do with several community transport charities, including schemes in Lancashire, Devon and Wiltshire, that have launched this Warm Wheels this winter. These are volunteer-driven lifts to warm hubs, lunch clubs and medical appointments, specifically aimed at people at high risk from the cold weather. The 2025 expansions are in response to an increased local demand and something that often gets addressed in the media, the declining rural bus routes. So as we were saying, it's about these connections. It's about, you need these organisations around, but if you can't get people to them, then that bridge has got to be crossed at some point.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And I wonder, let's see if we can find some links and put them in the show notes, Piers, because I think I'd be, if I've got spare time and people local to me, local to us need a lift, I'd be happy to give people a lift to places to stop them being isolated and to give them those kind of opportunities. So let's see if we can put the links in the show notes to try and see if other people want to do the same, because I'm sure there must be listeners here, our listeners out there who'd love to do something like that.
Yeah, brilliant idea, Tim. So that's our roundup of unexpected winter warmers 2025, from reducing isolation to keeping people warm, helping them get around and providing warm community places to be. These are community organisations and charities that are coming together to help people through what can be a really tough time of year.
And if you hear of a winter warming charity project in your area, big or small or micro, as we've been talking about, drop us a message. We'd love to share it in a future episode.
Thanks for listening to the Charity Show Bites. If this warmed your heart, please follow or rate us. It really helps.
Yeah, absolutely. Stay warm, and we'll see you next time.